So far this year, the American Civil Liberties Union is tracking a record number of anti-LGBTQ bills. It's actually easier to track the number of states that haven't introduced anti-LGBTQ bills from those that have. There's only 4: Wisconsin, Illinois, New York, and Delaware. I'm Katie Balovic, and I cover LGBTQ issues for Insider. The overall trend shows how right-wing lawmakers en masse are targeting the queer community. Texas leads the way, targeting freedom of speech, access to healthcare, what kids can talk about in schools. Missouri follows with 48 bills, then Oklahoma with 35. Iowa has 29, Tennessee has 26, and the list goes on. Some states are copying each other's anti-LGBTQ bills, creating a national framework of laws, making it increasingly difficult for the LGBTQ community to just exist and live, attend school, work, participate in extracurriculars. There are dozens of bills across different states targeting specifically the trans community and drag queens, people who dress up in drag. For example, a drag queen story hour, which are essentially a pretty toned down way for young kids to interact with the LGBTQ community.
Down came the rain and washed the spider out.
It's not a provocative experience. It's just kind of helping them gain some familiarity and see, okay, these are people. This person might look different from who you would see on the street every day, but this is a person. There have been efforts in a variety of states to target the ability for young people to get access to gender-affirming healthcare. In Georgia, a state that has leaned purple and blue in recent elections, they actually managed to pass an anti-LGBTQ bill that was preventing young people from accessing gender-affirming healthcare, which includes surgeries as well as just hormone therapy. So it's very much a selective targeting of who can use what kind of medical interventions and for what reasons.
Together we will keep Texas the greatest state and the greatest country in the history of the world.
In Texas, Governor Greg Abbott has encouraged his citizens to report parents who have trans children and let those children live as they are. They want citizens to report those parents for child abuse, which is a very serious charge and has caused some families to flee the state with their kids because they want to have a safe place for them to grow up and not feel targeted. A lot of it falls under the guise of protecting children. So they will say that they're protecting children from permanently mutilating their bodies. They'll say they're protecting children from material that they find to be pornographic. And they've used that as a reason to ban books talking about sex and gender, ban conversations about it in public. They want to pull books off of bookshelves. There is a distinction between lawmakers who are really passionate about their anti-LGBTQ beliefs. A lot of them are based in religion. There are others, I would say, that are just kind of going with the flow and following the votes. The Trump era definitely kind of kick-started the anti-trans targeting. Trump announced in a series of tweets that transgender people would no longer be welcome to serve in the military. Now, a few years later, there's so much more of a national movement, and you have lots of different Republican governors pushing these laws.
We fight the woke in the schools. We fight the woke in the corporations.
Governor DeSantis really, I think, led the charge with Don't Say Gay, with that legislation, and it picked up. And once they see that kind of success in one state, they're going to do it in another state. And that applies for a variety of different types of laws, whether it's about LGBTQ rights or abortion rights or talking about American history and race in schools. When they see something be a real flashpoint for conservatives in one state, a lot of times it'll spread like wildfire. There are definitely groups that are also lobbying to try and push this type of legislation forward. There are about 60 anti-LGBTQ groups that are identified as hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and that goes beyond just whether or not they think that members of the LGBTQ community should have basic rights. It's specifically promoting disinformation, pseudoscience, really damaging tropes about the LGBTQ community. A lot of these groups are tied to religion. Many of them have Baptist groups in the name. These bills and this overall movement has had a devastating impact on the mental health in the LGBTQ community. Some 40% of LGBTQ youth have reported seriously considering suicide. Those numbers increase drastically for people who are trans and non-binary. Some of the people who have said that they have considered suicide seriously or attempted suicide cited anti-LGBTQ sentiment and laws and bills as a reason for it. The rest of the year for the LGBTQ community is going to likely look like members of a protected class living in fear. The Department of Homeland Security has actually said that the LGBTQ community is at risk of being targeted by domestic terrorists. We had 5 people killed at the Club Q shooting in Colorado last year. So there is a very real threat of extreme violence against members of the LGBTQ community, on top of the day-to-day threats of, if you're a parent of a trans child, are you going to be reported for abuse? Or if you're a drag queen performing a story hour, are police going to show up? Are protesters and Proud Boys going to show up? And then when you look forward to the elections, it's likely that this type of rhetoric will continue